Now, Luigi Mangione's lawyers are seeking to dismiss the charge that could get him the death penalty if he's convicted of murdering the United Healthcare CEO. Now, his lawyers are arguing that Manhattan prosecutors shouldn't be able to use his statements given to police and his backpack where the gun was found due to him not being read his rights. They also argued that police did not have a warrant to search the backpack, violating the 27-year-old's rights. Mangione is accused of murdering Brian Thompson outside of a Manhattan hotel on December 4, 2024. The Ivy League graduate has pleaded not guilty to the state and federal charges against him. In September, the terrorism charges were dropped to the delight of the young man's fans. Well, for more on this, we are being joined now by our Rise analyst, Dor Brooks. Well, good to see you, Dor. And, well, for something that looked quite easy, we saw videos of the shooting, we saw him with the backpack, but it's becoming a little difficult in terms of prosecutors and what his defense is saying. Well, tell us exactly why it's beginning to look like a tricky situation, considering Louis Mangione, we saw the video of that shooting.
Yeah, it seems to have been bungled. The cases seems to have been bungled a bit by the police. If they did not read him his rights, if they did not have the okay to search the backpack or a warrant, if he had refused, then there are a number of technicalities which are going to complicate the case enormously. It's not. It should be, fairly, the allegations seem pretty clear and it should be fairly cut and dry. But it's if the police make these kinds of mistakes in the U.S., it is something that a good defense lawyer can take advantage of, and they are. And so, yeah, this is going to become more complicated. But of course, it is a celebrity case in many ways, and has a lot of Luigi has a lot of supporters around the country.
It's a shame considering the fact that, well, a man died in that encounter, which was a direct attack. But then murder cases are usually tried in state courts, but prosecutors have also charged Mangione under a federal law on orders committed with firearms as part of other crimes of violence. I'm not expecting that you take us through the legal gymnastics, but then at this point, well, do you think that would hold much water for, his lawyers are saying that, well, come on, they shouldn't use the charges raised by the federals on that?
Yeah, it is complicated that way, and it's become, because of the celebrity involved. I mean, this guy has raised $1 million for his defense. From people who are outraged, I think, at the U.S. healthcare system, which is incredibly arcane and expensive and often really complex. I mean, many people have issues with how U.S. healthcare is done and how much money is made by sort of the top healthcare companies and so on. So there's a lot of sympathy. So you have that going on, and then you have the federal government sort of trying to make it into this federal case where they're allowed to then execute him. But that's being complicated because our Department of Justice has bungled their own response to this. They have the president has said that this was a cut and dried case and that he was shot clear as day, so that it should be an easy case. But those comments then have been repeated by the Justice Department, who absolutely should not be repeating that. So it gives the defense lawyers just a lot of capability to run their defense, and so it's going to make the case much more difficult on technicalities, to be sure. But these are cell phones. These are the federal government doing things that are undermining their own case. It's crazy.
Well, you did earlier describe him as someone sort of a celebrity as regards getting some sympathy. Well, can you take us through some of it, especially for those of us who are not in the United States, so that we can begin to understand Like I said earlier, well, a man was shot in that encounter. Well, how come it is not a slam dunk case? How come he's getting some sympathy, and why exactly are people aggrieved with the healthcare systems?
Those are a lot of questions. I think, okay, we have a really a pretty strong legal system in the United States, and technicalities do matter when you are trying a case. You can't just, I mean, there's certain trackings you have to do on evidence. You have to, you don't want to spoil the case with or spoil any sort of jury by having statements, for example, from the president saying that this person's guilty. There's all sorts of things involved that are going to make essentially the defense lawyers will have a lot more ammunition to use to defend him, and they may be technicalities. It may be to the outside viewer a pretty open and shut case, but it has to be proven in a court of law, and if some of the evidence is getting thrown out because it was obtained illegally, that the procedures weren't followed, and that he was not read his rights when he was arrested, then that means that his early statements may not be allowable in court. Again, complicating things. Now, getting to the celebrity aspect, so again, there's a lot of resentment towards the healthcare system, which is we have a really complicated and expensive and terrible healthcare system in the United States. Yes, it can be the best healthcare system in the world if you have really good healthcare insurance, but most people don't have the really high-end insurance, and there's a lot of complications, and you end up doing a lot of phone calls and a lot of paperwork, and it's really crazy. And keep in mind, we have 50 states and a number of territories that have their own laws, rules, regulations for how healthcare is done and health insurance is done, which makes it really, really complicated. So yes, so there's a lot of resentment and a lot of issues that people have with healthcare. So this guy, who's a good-looking young man, takes it upon himself, and has his own health issues, by the way, takes it upon himself to allegedly execute this healthcare, this head of this giant healthcare company. So people are sort of saying, yeah, that shouldn't have happened, but it couldn't have happened to a worse person or a better person. I mean, it's crazy because this was the healthcare executive was a father with two kids, and was just executed in cold blood. So it's horrible, but at the same time, there's this sort of built up resentment around the U.S. towards the healthcare system, and the feeling that this good-looking young guy, took it upon himself to make a difference. It maybe not in the ideal way. So there is that kind of sympathy, and again, it's because of the the president weighing in on this and others. It just elevates this incident, and it complicates it even more.
Well, while the case is indeed complicated, but some critics have said there might be a reason to think about copycat killers, just in case Luigi gets off the hook with a smaller charge other than something quite consequential, looking at the alleged killings. What are your thoughts about it?
Well, I bet every healthcare executive now is making sure they have the kind of security they need, bodyguards and taking different routes to work, all that sort of thing. Stuff that you wouldn't think would be normal in the United States is probably pretty normal for the healthcare industry now, and that's unfortunate, and of course, creating even more costs. I it's a terrible situation, and there's been attempts by the government to kind of between Obamacare, the idea of creating a sort of a national healthcare service that has somewhat worked, but the Republicans have continued to try and eliminate it. And Trump himself has said many times that he wants to create a much better, simpler healthcare system. He's never been able to do it. And near as we can tell, he's never really gotten close to trying. So I think this situation is going to continue. And as a society, we just have to realize that these kinds of people are going to continue to be targets. And we, of course, we have an incredible amount of guns. It's very easy to get a hold of one, which makes assassinations like Charlie Kirk's assassination a few weeks ago quite easy and possible, and that's unfortunate.
Well, it's indeed unfortunate, but permit me to ask one final question. Is this the case? Is this the situation that definitely would make the American government sit up and begin to address issues of healthcare?
Yeah, no. That's not going to happen. It's way too complicated for the government. And right now, they have so many other issues that they're dealing with. Healthcare, I'm sure, is way, way down the list of priorities. However, it is interesting that the Democrats, in the current shutdown of the government, the Democrats have made healthcare the one issue that they want the Republicans to bend on. To reopen the government. And so, maybe you're right. Maybe this will get some movement on this, but the kind of comprehensive healthcare reform that needs to be done is probably way, way off in the future, unfortunately. And that's sad.
Well, thank you so much, Dor, for indeed providing all the insights on this particular situation.